All right, welcome in everybody. We are here for college football playoff. This is the selection Sunday. We now have our teams that we know who made it, who haven't made it. It's a whole trend right now of some teams that didn't make it. Obviously, for whatever reason, opting out of bowl games. They're like, hey, if we ain't in the playoffs, we don't want to play in no bowl games. As far as Notre Dame and a couple other teams, which is I think a little crazy for me. But um, I'll tell you this, hey, from the selections of what's come out today, what is y'all's opinions on what ended up playing out?
I mean, to be honest with you, I think the committee got it as right as they possibly can get it. I just think that when you think about the scopes, I'm kind of start from the back end going kind of to the top teams. I think when you look at those three teams that were fighting to get in between Miami, Notre Dame, and Alabama, the two teams that to me that had the best resume got in. I mean, Notre Dame and Miami's resume is so similar when you put them right next to each other. But Notre Dame, what you're crying about, you lost your head to head. That's kind of straight up what it is. So if they would have switched those teams, that would create a big uproar than leaving Notre Dame out. Man, if you watch this podcast through over the course of this season, we talked about Notre Dame and how easy it is for them to get into the playoffs. But this is right here is why I think that not being in the conference hurts them more than being in the conference. Because you can even see like for ACC, the conference champion didn't win and get in. They won, but they didn't have enough rest on their resume to get in. But because Miami's still in the conference, they get the benefit of the doubt with that going on, and they get to slot right in past those couple teams just based on their record. So I think when you think about Notre Dame, you're crying, cool, boo-hoo all you want to. You lost the two games this season that you really should not have lost. That's what put you in here. You did not have enough on your resume to boost you back over that Miami loss, and that just kind of is what it is. So I think the committee's got it right as they possibly could get it. Bama, to me, they should not have been penalized for losing their conference championship, no matter how bad that loss looked. We'll probably get in that a little later, but I think it's the best 12 teams you could possibly get in outside of the Tulane, James Madison. Those two teams to me are the only hindrance of getting the top 12 teams in. Those are the only two things I really have issues about. What you think,
Yeah,
Shay?
best 12. Best 12. I feel that a couple phone calls from a few people today that, they're not really like college football aficionados. They were like, why is James Madison? Who is James Madison? You know what I mean? They're like, what happened there? And I went and kind of had to explain the whole how you roll the dice and get a 1 and a 3 and make 5, and then you get, James Madison in the 12-team playoff. Um, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't. One of them is good. Both two of them, Tulane and James Madison, that might be overkill. I think you've watered it down so much to the point where you almost have two games that I'm not knocking y'all, but you pretty much guaranteed to lose them two games. So I can go ahead and start filling my bracket out now. You know what I'm saying? With those two games right there. I mean, you don't want to overlook them. Don't get me wrong. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful to you guys' programs, but this is y'all stepping up to the big leagues. I think your first round game, Tulane, is somebody that beat y'all. I think Ole Miss already beat you by 4 touchdowns during this season already. I don't know what makes us think that result will not be any different than that, just because it's later in the year. But outside of those two teams, like you said, Drew, I think the committee got it right. I think there's some interesting matchups. Especially the SEC matchups. I think are the SEC teams that play. I think they are all going to be tested. I think the rematch between Bama and OU is going to be a very, very telling game. If Alabama can clean up the turnovers, we'll kind of see what happens in that game. And I think Bama actually has a decent path. I look at Indiana up there.
Yeah.
I do like their quarterback. I watched the majority of that Ohio State game last night, and I will say Indiana is for real. They're all legit, and they can win the whole thing. I do think that. But they call Ohio State maybe not quite as Ohio State-ish as they can be, or as they, you know what I'm saying, focus,
Yeah.
all that stuff. I think if Indiana and Ohio State plays again for all the marbles, that's a completely different football game. But I think they, by the letter of the law, they got it right. Now the way they went about getting to it, the late Bama move. I don't know if they kind of realized that they had made a mistake when they put Notre Dame over Bama in the first place, and they had to kind of course correct. That was the right move. I just don't necessarily think they had to do it the way they did it. There were some nightmare scenarios, some doomsday scenarios, like if BYU had a beaten Texas Tech, and then I think another situation that could have happened that really would have kind of blown this thing up. It didn't really work that way, but I'm always a big fan of those doomsday scenarios. It happens in basketball too, when you're talking about those last couple of teams in, those first four out and here first two out, whatever the case may be. Those first two out would have had a chance to make some noise in this playoff too. But again, I think they got it right. I think they got it right.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing on here right now, or just looking at it, just how kind of this bracket is played out. I think this might be one of the my most favorite brackets we've seen so far in the playoff kind of like era. I like how they have it spread out. Of course, you got James Madison going to Oregon, and then the winner of that plays Texas Tech at a neutral site. But then you look at below that, Bama and Oklahoma having to play Indiana next. I mean, these are all just matchups, and I'm like, yeah, they're intriguing to see. How different does this Bama Oklahoma game look? I know it's the same day of, but they've already got Bama listed as a basically a 1.5 favorite. In this game, basically a toss up, really coin flip type of game. How different does it look? And now, a couple weeks from now, when we see them on December 19th. And then also you got Tulane, Ole Miss. We talked about that one as far as how when they played early in the season. I'm not sure what that game will entail. I think it'll probably be the same result in my mind. But after that, you've got the winner of that game going to play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. So that's all. If you get the Ole Miss rematch with Georgia from early in the season, which was a slugfest back and forth, that it kind of got away from it. How different does that game look? Especially now when you look at an Ole Miss team that doesn't have Lane Kiffin over there coaching. You've got basically a new coaching staff, new head coach making decisions there. And of course, it's somebody that's been in the building already, but different philosophies. You don't get the kind of gutsy fourth down. When do you go for it
That
randomly
could
throughout the
help.
ball?
That could
Right,
help.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you've got that situation going on, and then right after that, you've got Miami and A&M. How does A&M look? A&M has been a team that's been blowing everybody up all season until the end of the year when they went to play the rivalry game against Texas. But that I don't see Miami as the same team as they were in the middle of the beginning of the season as they do now. So how does that look at being a game that's in College Station, and the winner of that has to go play Ohio State? So like I said, this bracket to me just looks like, hey, I'm interested. There's not one matchup outside of maybe James Madison and Oregon that I'm like, I like all of these. I'm probably gonna be tuned into every single one. Not even probably, I will be tuned into every single one of these games. So it's gonna be real, real interesting.
What do y'all think the Ohio State faithful are thinking about that loss last night? Do you think they're upset that it was Indiana, or do you think there's respect for Indiana there, or do you think it's oh, here we go again, Ryan Day can't do it in the big game?
I think my opinion on it, I think it was a lot of respect given to Indiana, but I think I can't remember the exact year when Georgia beat Alabama for one of their first times. It was kind of like, you know what? I get them their respect because they've been close, like kind of pointing to last year with Indiana being close to getting in. But to me, I think it's a team in Indiana that Ohio State's gonna have to watch out for a long period of time. I think that's what comes out of that game, and just saying like Kirk Nettie is the type of coach that if you make a couple mistakes in that game, he's gonna capitalize, and that's what you saw last night. And even when his team made mistakes, they didn't like look like they got shaken. To me, when I looked at Ohio State, there was certain moments in that game where I thought that they were like shaken up a little bit just based on the physicality that Indiana brought to that game. And I watched pretty much almost every snap of that game, and like watching Ohio State's offensive line just kind of crumble at certain moments. It's kind of like, you know what? It doesn't take a lot of these coaches many games to figure out what your chink in your armor is. So if Ohio State is saying that, you know what, Indiana had a lot of film on us and they figured out how to slow this offensive down, get Julian Sand off his mark a little bit, make him a little bit less accurate, get that defense in, third and short situations and things like that. It doesn't look like the whole powerhouse we've been seeing from Ohio State since they lost to Michigan last year. So it's kind of like you saw a trend from Ohio State, and then you got this team that gives a little bit of a formula that shows how to beat that team. And it's kind of almost like I want to say last year in the Super Bowl with Chiefs versus Eagles. You give a team or you give a league a recipe to beat one of these big time teams, and it's gonna get repeated, 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 almost like what you're seeing from Alabama this year when they saw their offensive line get kind of shaky with pressure. Ever since you saw that offensive line get shaky with pressure, every single team just started sending so much pressure at Todd Simpson's offensive line. It's kind of like y'all gave the recipe to beat this team. So to say all that to say, Ohio State should not be too nervous about their path to another national championship, but I think their legitimacy long term in Big Ten is up for grabs in the aspect of who Oregon is, who Indiana is, and you also got a couple teams like USC that are trying to find their niche in that conference, man. But Ohio State is not going to be the top team in the Big Ten for too much longer. There's a lot of teams closing that gap.
Yeah, and one another thing that they're going to have to do, they're now the Big Ten conference is such to where you've actually got some good teams in there. They need to play some of these better teams. I think they thought they were doing something by playing Texas, but Texas was a shell of themselves last year. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't the same Texas team game one, and after that, you look and you say, okay, well they did what they beat these teams the way they were supposed to beat them, but who did they beat? Right. There wasn't much meat on the bone there. So this really could have been a situation where when they got to Indiana, they knew there was respect there. Like you said, dude, there was respect. They knew what it was going to be. But when I was watching that defensive line, Ohio State's defensive line go against the offensive line of Indiana and how they were just not getting pushed. With four, and even the announcer said it. They were like, Ohio State's used to getting pushed with four all year. This is probably the first time those four guys have not been able to get home, and that makes a tremendous difference. And I think it's coaching from Cignetti's perspective, and I think there's more talent over there at Indiana than I thought it was. You know what I'm saying? I saw a few dogs out there on the field, so yeah, I think there is a problem. Michigan may be falling off a little bit. Oregon needs to come on and act like they want to be up there at the top of the conference. Conference should be holding 3 or 4, teams that are top 10 teams throughout the course of the year. That's what that conference should hold, just like the SEC does. But if you're that good of a conference, you shouldn't have a team that's as good as Ohio State is, not play nobody for a whole year, and you got 16 teams,
right?
15 teams you can choose from to pick from to play. You should be scheduling harder within your conference.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and just from watching that game last night from the Ohio State standpoint, it kind of almost seemed as if I don't want to say they were uninterested in the ball game, but just the lack of effort on some of the plays were just kind of like it's not what you had seen the rest of the season coming from them versus an Indiana team who went out there looking like, hey, we have something to prove. We want to show y'all, all right, everybody's been talking all year that, hey, we're frauds and, so on and so forth. And we don't belong really as a top 1 or 2 team, even though we're undefeated. And especially carrying over from the, I guess you could say the label that was put on them last season in the playoff and whatnot. But they looked like we came to play, and they showed it and ended up winning that ball game. And tell me what y'all saw out of Georgia in that Bama game, that SEC championship game. What is y'all's assumption as to why that played out the way that it did from what should have been an equal standpoint in teams?
Yeah, I think seeing this trend from Kalen DeBoer over last year, I think after the Georgia game last year, I thought that he kind of just showed everything he had in his bag. I really can't put a standpoint on what period of time this season I felt like that, but at least I knew that for a fact going into the Oklahoma game. I was like, that game right there kind of solidified to me, like maybe he just doesn't have enough in his bag to defend or prepare these for certain teams that are just like almost more talented than you. And what I saw last night against the Georgia team was almost from the jump, Georgia just said, like, we're not going to let y'all beat us with the pass game. You either have to run the ball to be consistent, or we're just going to just put 8 defenders in the secondary and just get home with 4 and see what you can do about it. It wasn't even that they were getting home every single time. It's just the pressure. Todd Simpson's not that type of quarterback. If you speed him up, he's going to be efficient. We've seen that multiple times this season. And I just always look for the sideline to make an adjustment on these type of things. And I just never saw it. And I don't know what the running back issue is or what the running issue is with this team. I'm not just like, I just can't. It just frustrates me when I see them completely just go away from it. It's like you don't have no other type of screen game that works as a run game that you can consistently run. Like Georgia last night, I mean, almost 3 or 4 times their first possession, their first play of their drive is a like a speed reverse with their wide receivers. To a point, it's just throwing the defense off, getting eye discipline, things like that. And I just don't see that from Bama's offense like I did at the beginning of the season. So I'm not sure what it is, but Kirby Smart's got those guys at Georgia ready to make a championship run. We've seen that, and I thought I saw the turn of that team going into that Texas game. Man, they just are playing dominant, physical football, and you got to be ready to be physical enough with them to be able to hold that up. So when Bama put themselves with a block punt and an interception, and that it's just too much to overcome. And Bama's not the type of team to really come back from a big deficit like they were in. They showed some, fight late in that game, but it's just they need this break to get their team healthy, to revamp, to get some coaching staff to get together, so they can have some serious conversations about what the new direction is. But overall, Van, Bama is trying to figure it out when Georgia has it already figured out, and that's what you saw in that game right there.
Yeah, man. When you asked that question, Van, the one word that came to my mind was grit. Like this was Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart put his doggone stamp on his team for this game. And they came out, they just wanted it more, man. I mean, they just wanted it more. We're still the guy that blocked the punt. I don't even think he was touched. We hadn't talked much about special teams because special teams is really outside of field goal kicking. It just kind of is what it is. But that was terrible. Georgia sent the same blitz on two plays back to back. And when I saw it on the screen, I think the first time we did it, we was in like 3rd and 2, I think. And and they showed it. And the center pointed at it, recognized that it was there. They got through on both plays. It was 3rd and 2, I think it was, and then 4th and 2, the exact same blitz. The problem I had with that was when our defensive team, our defensive coaching staff, everybody involved that has eyes, when they saw that blitz lineup again, why didn't we try to run a screen or something like that to that side where the cat was coming from, or even the other side, because we had numbers on that side too. When you look at the formation, even on the when we looked at the play on 3rd down, I looked at it, I said, all we got to do is hand the ball off and run. I said, Ty Simpson can take off and run to his left right now if he wants to. Take the snap and just take off and run to the left. You'll get you 2 yards because there's nobody over there. We just did something dumb both times, and Georgia got home both times. That's what happened. You know what I'm saying? They were just getting home. Ty Simpson spent so much time on his back. I remember that one time there was a penalty. I think it might have been an offsides penalty on us. It was kind of bang bang, but the defensive lineman for Georgia got through, and he kind of popped him a little bit. It wasn't illegal. He just kind of hit him a little bit.
Yeah.
I said, man, he shook. I said, Georgia is just completely in our heads. I said, I don't know if this is us looking worse than we have all year or Georgia looking as good as they have all year. You know what I'm saying? If the two teams matched up again healthy, maybe it's a different result. We need Cuevas. I think not having Cuevas is a big deal for us. I can't remember a time where Alabama was so reliant on one guy to be a good 3rd down team. You know what I'm saying? So reliant on one guy. And when Cuevas is not in, I can't see what's going on in the back end, but I can only imagine that they're doubling Jeremy Bernard because he would be that next guy on those mesh concepts that we're always hitting. Like getting 35, 36 has not been a problem for this team all year. It just has not. But what kind of impact does a really good tight end have on that percentage? You take him out of the equation, you put somebody else in. It's a big body, but his hands aren't quite as sure as they need to be. He doesn't have the field presence. I think he stepped out of bounds on a 3rd down play one time when he could have stayed in and got a 1st down. Just little stuff like this, little coaching stuff like that we just don't seem to have. It's very frustrating. Ryan Williams, I think, was probably one of the faster kids on the team last night. And I like him when he knows how to catch a football. You know what I'm saying? He dropped the touchdown pass. He let it get through his hands and hit him in the body. He would have landed in the end zone if he had caught that ball with 2 hands.
Actually, an
You know,
awful miss. That was an awful
it was
miss.
terrible. And they showed it 3 or 4 times. I'm like, oh my God, if that was my child, you know what I'm saying? I would be like, cut the TV off because now they
Right.
talking about you. You know what I'm saying? But with all that being said, when the guy does get the ball in his hands, he usually is doing something with it. You know what I'm saying? Like he's making noise when he has the ball in his hands. And I just don't know why we're not creatively trying to do that. You know, it's like we know the guy needs to touch the ball 4 or 5 times a game minimum. Let's just say, let's just not let it be on deep passes. You know what I'm saying? Let's get him involved in the screen game. Let's just get the ball in his hands. You know what I'm saying? We're not doing that. We're just not doing any of the stuff that we can't run the ball. I don't think Jan Miller would have been any better. The negative rushing number was mainly Ty Simpson sack numbers, but
Yeah.
number 4, I still like him. The freshman, the true freshman, number 0. He had a little bit of a flash, but why is he in on the key third down play? And the ball is snapped aside. He goes right here. This dude's going over here pass blocking. That's coaching, guys. That's just straight up preparation and coaching. We weren't ready, man. So we're better than that. Georgia played lights out. There wasn't much we could have done to win that game. We gave up field position in the first half. There was no way. The 4th and 2 pass over here that sailed on the receiver that basically sealed the game was just a bad decision. I think I turned the game off with about 5 minutes left. I could not watch anymore. I was done. Yeah. And while we got in, after watching that, I said the same thing, Drew. I'm glad we got in because I got more football to watch. I can cheer. It's nice and everything. And I think we can win a first-round game against Oklahoma. But, man, I think Notre Dame might have been a better selection based off the eye test, based off what you see. I thank you, committee, for doing what you did. Maybe it was some get back from leaving us out last year, but I don't think we got a dog in the fight being in this field.
And to be honest with you, though, Sean, the answer kind of reverse that whole starting where you ended at, going back to where you started at. I think that the committee did us a favor, but I do think, like Van said, that we are in a position in the bracket where we can make a run. It's just going to depend on coaching. And I've battled myself watching all these coaching changes. I know that's probably we'll get to a little bit later, but watching all these coaches changes, man, I have to be appreciative of the coach we have, but I'd hate the coach we have. It's like one of them things of like, if you think of a better coach out there than Debo right now, I'm like, I don't know if there is one, because I hate to be in a position where like Florida or like some of these other schools, it just kind of just felt like they just settle for whoever is available. Like, I don't want to have Bama in that position because that takes Bama from 10 wins down to like maybe like 8 wins. And it's a tough place to be in. So I think what the committee did for us is it gave us a shot to kind of show that the way we entered the season is not way we kind of got in the middle of the season. So you kind of have a team in Oklahoma. It's a revenge game. It is a true revenge game, and I don't really feel like Alabama's had like a real revenge game in a while. You could say Vandy beating us last year, getting them this year again. I could be like, that was a good revenge taste, but I wasn't like, you know what, based on what they did to us, we got to beat this team. I feel like that against Oklahoma. Based on what they did to us the last 2 times, they've been the biggest hiccup in our season 2 years in a row. They've been one of the biggest hiccups in Debo's career as Bama. You got to go down there and beat this team. You have got to. And they are beatable because their offense right now isn't clicking the way it has been early in the season before that injury. And I'm not sure what that issue is still with their offense, but it is an offense we could take advantage of if we don't turn the ball over. Kind of focusing back on the Georgia game last night. Man, it was so much coaching in that game that just threw me off with Alabama in the aspects of I feel like Debo wants Ty to be everything for this offense, and he's not that. If you give him a perfect situation, he is a good quarterback. But to be like when everything's falling apart, he's not the guy to bring this team back together and get it out of there. You got to have some type of system that says, you know what, when we can't be creative as we want to be, this is our bread and butter. And Georgia found that through their season in multiple aspects of their team. The team that we played 10 weeks ago is not the same team we play right now, Sean. To go back to that question is, Georgia just showed that they're just way better than the team we played the first time on all aspects. Even in that first game, the different blitz packages that Kirby Smart and his defensive coordinator conjured up over the course of the season was just something that just Bama act like they just never seen those blitz packages before. And I'm like, Jed Miller, to me, to answer another one of your questions you pointed on, would have helped because he's somebody at least that I know can pick up pass protection. and throw his shoulder into somebody and say, you know what, I'm gonna give Ty Simpson an extra couple seconds. I saw Daniel Hill number 4 last night turn his head, like turn his body out the way, like I'm about to get out the way of this rush to
Oh
get
yeah,
Ty
yeah.
Simpson hit.
I remember
Especially
that.
Sean on the one where it was a false starter, jumped off sides or whatever it was. He moved out the way and let his quarterback get hit and then did nothing. He not even pick your quarterback up off the ground after you turn your body like that. And I mean, it's just grit, like you said, Sean. It's mental, but it's also coaching. The coaching that says, you know what, no matter how bad we getting beat, you're not about to embarrass nobody or have your quarterback just getting smacked around like that without showing no grit in return. Without showing no grit in return. I don't care in that standpoint. If I'm a Bama player in that play in that stance where that play happened, we losing, I'm gonna go ahead and pop number 0. Like you're not about to just come in here and free swing my quarterback like that with no penalty flag or anything like that. And Todd tried to settle a little bit, but you're not going in and get a free hit on my quarterback, especially when the whistle's blowing without me doing anything. And that's one of the differences I see in this team. Last point I want to make about last night's game. Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard for this offense, I just feel like they're just too far apart from each other and what we need. Like when you see other teams' wide receivers, you kind of almost like I see a similarity in between both options. Like let's say Ohio State, for instance, Jeremiah Smith and Cornell Tate almost resemble each other so much on the field, the way they run routes, the way they catch balls. It's consistent for a quarterback to be like, I know I'm throwing at this type of ball every single time. Ty Simpson literally almost has to change up his throws for depending on who he's throwing the ball to. And it's one of those things where it's like Ryan Williams created this for himself. He got off to a good start last night, made some explosive plays, but it's the consistency with him that's just been disappearing all season. You cannot win big time games like that if you do not have a run game involved at all. So I think Bama going into this game with Oklahoma, they just got to get committed with the run. Got to get committed with the run because what we can't have is a team that comes in there like Georgia that says, for the start of this game, we're going to send maybe one extra guy with pressure, but we're dropping 6 to 7 guys back in coverage. It just creates way too much thought process for for Ty Simpson. It cuts off one of our main hitters in our offense, which is the crossers, the dig routes, the mesh concepts, and things like that. It just blows that up
Mhm.
for our offense. And if our offense is stagnant in the early parts, it's going to be stagnant all game long. And that's coaching on that aspect. And I think that this coaching staff is getting exposed. I'm proud they got in the playoffs because I think with another season without making the playoffs, you got people on the hot seat. But at this point, if you go into Oklahoma facing this team, at this point, it will be third time in 2 years, and you have not shown any improvement or any adjustments on how they're going to attack you, knowing they're going to blitz the hell out of you. It's on coaches at that point. I don't care. In saying that to say, I don't care what talent you bring on this team. If you can't put them in the right position to succeed, everybody's going to lose in big time games. It's just what it is. So I don't know what quarterback changes you can make to make something different. We've tried 5 different running backs this season, not gonna make a difference. We've tried multiple different offensive line um, matchups that never made a difference. It's coaching at this point. We're gonna see what they're gonna do. They got a couple weeks to bring something out their ass, but I think we have a chance to beat Oklahoma. It's gonna be close. And then you give it to Indiana, man. You get those non-conference opponents, it's just a toss-up. If Bama can get 2, we'll see how far they can go, but it's going to be a long, long couple weeks for Bama trying to figure this stuff out. A lot of long nights for Debo, and almost probably going to have some traumatizing nights watching his teams back on film and just saying, you know what? I know I'm a better coach than this, but I'm not putting a better product on the field. So how do we solve those issues is what I'm going to be interested in seeing, watch the kind of the sources I watch on YouTube and stuff like that kind of give Bama intel. But man, this team right here is not the team I thought it was. But at the end of the day, I still think they got a shot, not toward Natty, but to win a couple games in this playoffs.
And they just got to make adjustments, man.
Oh, yeah.
I see no adjustments. I saw the same offense the second half that I saw the first half. The doggone wide receiver going across going across on every play. Whether he may be coming this way, he could be coming this way.
Going one way or going the other.
Right. It's becoming very predictable. It's becoming uneasily predictable, even
Right.
for someone that doesn't even know anything about football. They can say, "Hey, they running the same play." So
Right.
yeah,
And then what
some
we see
things
with
got
the
to
blitz
change.
packages, Sean, what we see with the blitz packages, and now they're bringing blitzes from the outsides.
Yeah.
You bring a blitz not from your middle linebacker, your inside linebackers. You're more bringing it from safeties and nickel positions and things like that to still keep your center of your defense strong, which
Mm-hmm.
messes with the eyes. So I mean, you got to have some type of screen game, some type of something to kind of loosen up that middle of the field to get back to your bread and butter. But they don't have no way to make that adjustment right now, and it's actually scary to see. It's actually really scary to see for this type of coordinators and offense that we have. But man, we're gonna see. I think it's gonna be a different team against Oklahoma, but I've been wrong about this team for past maybe 3 or 4 weeks. So
Same.
we'll
Yeah.
see.
Same.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to say appreciate everybody being active in the chat box. I don't know if y'all been checking that out, what's going on the live in there. But somebody brought up a good statement that I think we've talked about it. We've talked about it. I know the national media have talked about it some this season. What did you get out of the conference championship weekend? Did you still think this is a direction that'll stay in the next coming years? Like people take it for not for granted, but will this continue to be a thing where they have a conference championship weekend? Or are we looking at the exit of this? Because now you've made it where the top two conference championship games, I don't want to say meant nothing, but you're not losing any credit for losing in these games. What incentives are you getting for really playing in them? I mean, you look at Ohio State and Indiana, they basically all they did was swap places. Bama stayed exactly where they was. Georgia sitting right where they were in that game. What are y'all getting out of this weekend mindset wise as how teams will be viewing conference championship games here in the short future?
I think
Man,
that's
go ahead, Drew. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's tough just because of the aspect of I think you want to win these games, but I also think that if you're not in it, you're not as worried as you was before. I think the game still matters, but I think for the people watching the game, it's I don't feel bad not being in the SEC championship or not being in the ACC championship or not being in the Big Ten championship. I mean, those to me are the three championship games we're always looking at. Big 12 is always kind of fascinating, but it's never really something I always put my eyes on. But for me right now, I think conference championship games, if you're in it, you want to win it. We've seen a couple years in a row that if you lose that game, it doesn't punish you too much as long as you got a good resume behind you. But I think it's more impactful for the teams that don't make it, a la the Texas A&M, the Oregon, the Ole Miss, those type of teams that just say, you know what, we're done. Our resume is what it is. We know we're gonna get in. We can't get hurt or help from this weekend. That's my impact of it. Is for the teams that's playing in it, still a big time game. For the teams watching, we can say, you know what, I'm not as dependent on the results of this game to get in as I once was.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's too much money. This has been going on. Conference championship games have been going on since 1992, and the SEC started this. Most of us know that. There's too much money involved. All these TV contracts that some of the ones that have been signed already. The conference championship games are a big part of the money that was paid out to these conferences by these the television people. They need those eyeballs. They need them. The TV people could care less who's playing. They want to know who's playing, yes, but they need the eyeballs. You know what I'm saying? So the committee did what it had to do this year. When it moved Bama from 10 to 9, it had to reward Bama for going to a championship game. It had to punish Notre Dame for not. And then when they did not move them, which shocked me, it proved the point that we're going to reward you for going. We're not going to punish you for losing. That's how you protect the integrity of the conference championship games and make teams still want to go and play them. If they had a screwed Bama, when I say screwed Bama, they wouldn't have technically screwed them, but there would have been an argument that you're leaving out a conference championship runner-up. And that would have started the domino effect of making teams say, hey, I'm not going. You go ahead and take them because I'm already in. I'm already in. Why am I going? Why go? So I think the committee did a great job of protecting the integrity of the conference championship game by moving Bama from 10 to 9 2 weeks ago. That's when they realized that they had screwed up and they were going to have some problems. And they don't fix it right now, they will never come back from it. So I think they made a good decision.
Yeah, I think there still is some tweaking though with it, with the conference championship weeks. I think the reward for winning your conference championship needs to be a little bit bigger. I'm not a fan of that you like Ohio State's predicament saying we can lose our conference championship game and still be a top 4 seed that gets a bye. I just think that's not enough for them, like you said, when it comes to that motivation factor of it, just saying, we can lose this game and still be okay. I think that you can't make the punishment too severe, but you got to make the reward successful enough to where, you know what, we still got everything we want to get through and actually be in a better position with this type of win. So the seeding aspect of the playoffs is still something that they got to fix. I don't think
Hmm.
that going to a 16 team seed is going to be the way it's going to go. You just got to tweak these couple rules a little bit each season. Just say, hey, what's the criteria is going to be to get one of these top four seeds to get your bye? That's what the significance of it's got to be. And I think that if you win your conference championship, you should have major significance rather than losing your conference championship in that aspect. And it's interesting watching it because even though Ohio State lost theirs, they moved down to two. Is there a way, is there a formula where they can lose that game and still not get a bye, but still get a significant seeding spot? I'm not sure how what that formula is. Way more smarter people out there thinking about that stuff than me, but that's my only factor of it is I think the motivation factor has to be looked at and saying, you know what? Once Ohio State got to a certain point where they realized we might not win this game, they just say, you know what, let's get out of here healthy. Same thing with Bama. I think Bama's fight that I saw in them, they never got that mindset of I'm just gonna throw my hands up and just throw this game by. But I
Hmm.
definitely think that it is a factor in what's going on right now with conference championships game and the motivation that you have behind teams and understanding that we lose this game where the rest of our season is still good. That's a scary place to be. That's a scary place to be. It worked out this season, but for seasons coming, I could definitely see teams that just say, you know what, I might bench my starting quarterback this game if he's a little bit banged up, just because we still might be able to get in and things like that. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But I think conference championship games based on this season work the way it was supposed to work, especially even with ACC having their doomsday situation with Duke taking it all. And I think that was one that was more fascinating to me than a couple others, on Saturday as well.
For sure. Ask Duke. I mean, they didn't end up going nowhere. I mean, we can't give them too much love because we didn't end up with Duke in there. That was maybe worse than a James Madison or a Tulane. But I get it. You do want
Yeah.
there's something to be said about the fact that they won that championship. You know what I'm saying? Like Duke
Mhm.
won it. It was talked about on Sports Center for a couple minutes, and then everybody just moved on. Nobody even
Right.
we don't even know there's a trophy down there right now. You know
And
what
the
I'm saying?
ACC did that to themselves. But at the end of the
Right.
day, it's almost like, you know what? What's Miami's thought process on watching the ACC championship versus someone like Duke being in the ACC championship? It's almost like, what can we have? Can we have like almost like a play-in situation like the NBA has? We have a couple play-in games where you got to face this team versus that team to see if you get into the playoffs, and we'll solve all this debate, politicking. Because that was the only thing that frustrated me through conference championship. After every game that was won or lost, how does your team still think about his resume and stuff like that? And everybody just brings out their best politicking speech they can get into. And even Duke coach, I'm watching him last night, like me and my fiance watching him speak last night. We're like, as you're giving your politicking speech, the committee puts on the little board, Duke's chance of making the playoffs is 0.1% chance. I'm like, you might as well just mute the coach at that point because you're telling him he's not gonna get in, even though he's
Yeah.
a big Power Five conference champion. It's a tough conversation to go into, but I would love to see maybe like a little play-in situation, maybe one of these games, something like that. Like get it early enough where teams can still get some healthy time to get a break, but also have a game where it's like, you know what, this is significant enough to get a team in that's on that bubble when it comes to those. I don't even know why they do it, but give the first team out or second team out scenarios. Like, what are we even showing those for? If it's just going
Yeah.
to piss everybody
I
off as
I
either one
agree.
of those two teams. Like, can we have a play-in situation? Can the conference championships that were left out play those two teams and we might get in? Who knows what it would look like? But I think it's just a couple tweaks that need to be made. But championship weekend this year, man, it gave a lot that was supposed to give.
Yeah. Another quick thing. Well, one last thing before I don't want to have this drag on too long, and I'll probably save this discussion for the off season. We have some content come out then as far as how can you adjust what's going on in these conferences to make because you're having so many issues with like the Duke situation with the record being what it was, but because of tiebreakers and who other teams lost to, that's how they ended up in the ACC championship game. And people forget when this issue happened, this is probably even before I was born, but somebody brought it up. I was watching a sports guy talking about it. And he was like, this is what you had divisions for. You had divisions that put teams into the your conference championship games for this exact reason. So you don't got somebody that's tied for where you have all of your teams 6-1, all with the same basic record, and because of tiebreakers and so on and so forth, now you're having to try to figure out who could be in that championship game and solve it out all out. But we'll discuss that later. But last topic I want to talk on before we get out of here today, just y'all's opinion now that the bracket is set. Give me at minimum three teams that you guarantee that you think this team can win a national championship based on what they put in the field so far.
I'm gonna let you start that one off, Sean.
All right, all
That's for
right,
me.
all right. So the top two teams, of course, Indiana, Ohio State. I think those two teams are both equipped to to win the national championship. I also do believe that the third team that's got what it takes to do it is playing the way they should be playing right now with the mentality and the coach is Georgia. I think those are the three teams that nobody wants to play right now. And if you did, and listen, I don't. And Georgia is not flashy at all. I hate watching them play football because there's nothing sexy about it at all. They just kind of get the job done when they're doing it right. You know what I'm saying? It's football at its finest when they're doing it right. When they get in a third and short with a quarterback like a Gunnar Stockton, he's either going to take off or they're going to do some kind of bootleg rollout. But you know they're going to get it. You know they're gonna get it. It's like they got this. It's like watching old Nick Saban team. So I can't say that I like Georgia better than Indiana or Ohio State because I don't know if they have enough firepower on offense. If a game gets into a shootout, I think Georgia's wanting to keep this game low scoring. Georgia's an old school football team, which I also love. I hate watching them do it, but I love the fact that they're still playing old school football and they're going for first downs and not touchdowns. They're controlling the clock, they're limiting turnovers, they're creating turnovers. They're just doing everything you need to do. Like Texas Tech on steroids. You know what I'm saying? So I know it sounds like I'd be picking Georgia right now because I'm kind of on their thing right now, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm just giving Kirby Smart a lot of credit for taking his team from kind of where they were earlier in the season and just continuing to ride this wave upward through the depths of the SEC. I can't give Indiana or Ohio State I can't give them that same love just because they didn't travel the same journey that Georgia did.
This is a tough one for me. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. This is a really tough question for me because the team that should be my number one is Ohio State. Just when you look at resume, when you look at everything that this team has done for the past couple of seasons, it's like, you know what, y'all are in a prime position to win another national championship. Y'all are in that prime position that Georgia was when they went on that two-peat and just saying, you know what, based on paper, you have the best team to get it done. But I gotta put to me, Sean, I'm with you. I gotta put Georgia my number one. And I just think it's based on the last couple of weeks and the trajectory that team's on, man. They are just on another realm right now. They know exactly what they want to do. They know exactly how to get it done, and they're doing it, which is more important. I think the only thing that threw me off last night with Georgia was their penalties. They were just so penalized last night. It was at a point, I think it was almost like 7-1. And I was like, you know what? I don't know how Bama's even letting them get beat like this with being like 7-1 penalty wise. Bama got some penalties later on in the game to make it more evened out, but Georgia right now is a powerhouse. They've been there, they've done that, and they're looking to do it again. They got that experience. Number two, just because of what I just said, has to be Ohio State, just because I think they got a quarterback that can win a national championship in Julian Sayon. I think he is that guy, and I think when they get into trouble, they got to fix the offensive line stuff. When they get into trouble, they got superstars that can make big time plays in big time moments, which is going to matter right now. And to be surprising with y'all, man, this was a toss up. I actually could go to 6 easily. But I'm going to give actually Texas A&M an edge on this right here too, because I think Texas A&M is getting a break they need. When they got to a point in their season where, you know what, it was just like, you know what, teams are figuring us out a little bit. We're turning the ball over. We're not playing sound football like we used to be. And I think after that loss to Texas, man, teams just kind of just stopped talking about them. They're going to be ready. They got a prime time position. They got a tough schedule to get there, but a quarterback like Marcel Reed can make plays on his feet. It's going to be a problem in these type of playoffs. And I got two of them that I was tied with before you even get to my third team. But I was going to do Texas A&M, Ole Miss, then I'll put Indiana in there just because of Indiana's path. I think they got a tough path with either Bama or Oklahoma in that second round matchup. So I think it's tough for them to sneak out of there. And then if they were to beat that team, they would have one more game to play before they even get to the championship. I think Indiana just got a tough route to go, even being the number one seed, which is crazy. So I
All
got
right, so yeah, for
Ohio
mine,
State.
I gotta go. I'll make it real quick. Indiana. I got Ohio State, I got Georgia, I got, and then A&M is who I got. I think, like you said, Drew, people kind of went quiet on A&M and didn't really like remember how they were running through teams. They're physical on both the lines of scrimmage, what you want out of a team. Their secondary is playing good, their receiving core is playing good, running game is going good. They got a quarterback in Marcel Reed who was supposed to be a Heisman candidate before the Texas game, and everything kind of just went radio silent after that. I just think they are a extremely talented team. And I tell you what, I think they'll beat Miami. And if they run into the same Ohio State team that played last night, I think they come out of that game with a win also. So to
Oh
keep
yeah.
to keep it rolling. Now, just to go with, I'm gonna get y'all's opinion just real quick, just because we got somebody in the chat right now saying that therefore we're Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, and Ole Miss as therefore. What do y'all think the mindset for an Ole Miss team right now is? Without your head coach, are you focused enough to go into this? I know you got Tulane in your first game, but then you got to turn right back around, which it'll probably happen, but turn around and then take Georgia on in a game like that. How do you think that locker room is feeling? How confident are they to keep going to try to make a run at this thing?
Man, I think Ole Miss is probably the most confident team going into these doggone 12-team playoffs. One, you've been shunned
Hmm,
by your coach, right? Yeah, y'all.
really?
The players are still there. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? They are still in the building. You know what I'm saying? They have a very favorable draw. The first game that you got to play is a team you've already beat by 4 touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? The second team is the team that you go toe to toe with every year. You ain't scared. You know what I'm saying? They're not scared. We saw y'all too. You know what I'm saying? I believe Ole Miss is poised. Now, all Pete Golding had to do is just let the OC do his thing. Let him call the plays. Don't get involved. Manage the game. Keep that challenge flag close and monitor them doggone timeouts. You know what I'm saying? If he does that, if the plays are being called in the same fashion they were being called when Lane were there, which I see no reason for them not to be, with the exception of maybe some bonehead stuff that happens from time to time, Ole Miss might be in better shape with more motivation. You know what I'm saying? Because their backs are really against the wall. People were even talking about the fact they shouldn't even be here. Should we even let them in because they lost their coach? They're like, F you. He wasn't the only reason why we got here. We're the ones that did it on the field, right? Hey, lace them up. Let's go. Ole Miss for me.
Ole Miss is on upset alert. To be honest with you, man, this team right here, man, they on upset alert. I think what happens is, and I don't want to give Lane Kiffin too much credit just because of where he is now. I gotta respect where he is now. But man, that coach is right now is calling some of the best football he's ever called in his career. And I think changing that, I don't know if you still get the same quarterback play you've been getting all season from Chambers. That is my only concern with this team is if you don't get the same quarterback play that you've been getting all year, you're not going to be the same team that all around. And I think that is the biggest pause right now when it comes to Ole Miss. My secondary pause is going to be, you said the name that I hate the most is Pete Golden. I've seen what he can do in big time games. I've seen what he's done because he was a part of Bama's staff like that, man. And he can drop games. He could drop games defensively. And I think if you don't have a voice bigger than his in that locker room right now, it's a problem. So I don't know if I think they like I agree with you, Sean. They do got a good draw, but I just don't know what the product is anymore. I really don't know. And I think with Lane Kiffin, I know that he's going to bring an offense there that's going to be efficient enough to get that type of job done. But I don't know what this team right here is going to be. I just really don't. They got the talent to get it done. But man, I think that if you're talking about a national championship run, I'm gonna put a hell no. Y'all might be done with Georgia. Y'all might get blown out by Georgia if you don't come in there with the right game plan when it comes to what that team is right now. So Ole Miss, I agree with the chip on their shoulder. I agree with the talent on the field. But man, coaching is gonna matter so much in this playoff. So we got some heavy hitters, and Pete Golding is not a heavy hitter in this playoffs right now. He might be sixth, seventh, eighth best coach in the playoffs right now, which is a problem for that team.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Well, definitely it'll have some interesting conversations going in, and definitely round one will be something I think everybody will tune into just to see not only the games but the mindsets of the teams of some of the people who may have had late season losses or coaching changes and coordinators leaving and so on and so forth, just to see where all of that plays out too. And also going back to last season, the team that won the national championship was the team that played in round one. They didn't take that bye week going into the rest of the playoff format. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how everybody comes out and plays. But until then, I know we're gonna hop on again, maybe this week, maybe next weekend. We got some coaching changes we need to go over. I think the entire SEC, half the SEC has had a complete flip, and we talked about it, I think, midway through this year that with the new nine-team SEC and how many coaches are gonna change, and it looks like it came faster than we thought it was gonna happen. So definitely get on here and talk about that before we have this week one slate, and all of those games will probably be individual videos. But thank everybody for tuning in, for hopping in the chat. A couple people who got in there and left some comments is what we want. We like the dialogue. We like the feedback that y'all are giving, and y'all holler back and tune in for us next time. Until then, we will see y'all in the next video.